Good evening, all. How are you tonight? Very good. Glad to have you with us. Seeing out the notification. If you're watching this back on YouTube, of course, feel free to move ahead. In about a few moments from now, we'll kick off. I am not typically one who waits for the group. Come on in the room. Come on in the room. I'm not typically one who does all that, but I'll give it a minute here. I'll be generous. But like I said, if you are watching this back at any point on Facebook or YouTube, do feel free to move ahead in the action. Warm it up, warm it up. All right. As my custom, I like to move on, get on with the getting on. So let's do that this evening. I'm pulling it up here. Hopefully, it's not always cooperative. I have no idea what's happening. Anyway. Sorry about that. All right, so let's get started. I don't type all that I do on the original just because my fingers are too big and the cell phone is too small. Trying to type all that out. I used to do that and it never worked right. So let's just get into it. Of course, emotions versus expression, which if you've been tracking with us the last few weeks, a couple of weeks now, you know that it's really not one versus the other, but I did that just for conversation's sake. The reality of it is the expression of emotion, however, can not always coincide with what somebody is feeling. I do believe it's quite possible. And many times, children in particular are a bit pure with that. You know, they'll cry, and then what's wrong with you? I'm angry. And, before we catch ourselves, well, why are you crying? And what we immediately are sending the signal or teaching that child is that their crying is not what we classify as a proper expression of their anger. When in fact, some people cry trying to mitigate or to get the anger to dissipate or trying to facilitate that anger. So they'll cry. In fact, tears are nondescript. Let's just start there. Let's start with the expression of tears. Okay? And I hope men and ladies do a watch party on this for the fellas on your page, because hopefully as a man, I'm able to free some of them with what I'm about to say. Tears are indescript. And for those who've raised sons, and maybe you didn't quite communicate, men or women, and you raised sons, you might have communicated something different than this, particularly if you're a woman. Please hear what I'm going to say. There is nowhere in the annals of psychology, sociology, biology, Bible, New Age thinking, where tears are feminine. There's nothing in all of literature that makes tears feminine. In fact, if you read most, and I'm not trying not to get into this, but if you read most poetry, going back to first century, you go way back even before the time of Christ, and even in the Bible, for those who so happen to be Christian, of course, Jesus wept. But tears, at some point, I don't know historically when this happened, became a feminine expression of emotion. So one, and we'll get to this, ladies, obviously I have to, women are emotional. Oh. So we'll get to that. Stay with me. And in the identification of women as emotional, which if you watch the first broadcast in this series, what did I say? We're all emotional. We're all emotional. Emotions are rangy. There's tons of emotions. We all have feelings. But now let's deal with this, I think, very serious subject, even though I'm going to try to keep it light, of the expression of emotion. And I said in the very first broadcast, to show you my consistency, that I think we have to really repair our view of our emotion, and especially in our communities, the emotional expression of others. Because let's be honest, starting with tears and crying, tears of joy. Ever heard that expression before? Tears of sadness. Let me add one to your list. Tears of anger. Yeah. Ever cry some tears of anger? How about this one? Tears of frustration. Ever cried some tears of frustration? Ever been so frustrated that you just broke down and cried? But you know what happens? That's tears of anger. No, you're not angry. You're frustrated. How about tears of sadness? Of course, yeah, Gabe. Okay, we track with tears of sadness. How about tears of joy? I was so happy that I started crying. How about tears of pain, emotional pain? Really, Gabe? Yeah. Are you angry necessarily when you cry over a loved one dying? No, you are feeling an emotional pain, and it's so overwhelming, you cry. Oh man, I'm all deep into it the first few minutes. I didn't even waste no time tonight. Just Jesus. I'm deep in this bad boy. Why waste time? Let's get to it. Men, hear me. And you may not be watching me live at the moment, but watch this back, fellas. Tears are indescript. Okay, what do you mean? Why are you using that word? Because I want to. It's my mouth. But the other reason why I'm using that word is because somewhere in in history, tears became an act of weakness. Stay with me, ladies. Don't get mad. That was suggested to only be done by the weaker vessels, women. Somewhere long before I was born, and I suspect long before anybody on my Facebook page was born, going way back, probably hundreds of years, somewhere somebody decided, probably a man, that tears was an expression of emotion that men, stay with me, was not supposed to express. Not that they didn't have those emotions necessarily, but they weren't supposed to express it. Wow. So I ask the question, men and women, especially women who's raised sons, where did we get that from? Have you ever said that to your sons, to your grandsons, to your husband, to a male coworker? Have you ever thought it when you saw a little boy crying and he was maybe close to teen years? And at some point there was some words like be tough. And believe it or not, I've heard women say that to boys as much as I've heard men say it. I'm raising my son. I don't want him to be a, dare I say it? Dare, sissy. What is he crying for? What is he crying about? And some ladies who raise their daughters to be tough because this is a man's world and you got to survive in it. What are you crying for? You can't cry. What is that famous movie, League of Their Own? There's no crying in baseball. Tears is an indescript expression of emotion. Pain, sadness, joy, frustration, grief. Shall I continue? Tears are biological. They are sparked. They are caused, right? Tears are caused by, again, some stimulus. Tears are not female. Somebody has fireworks for some strange reason. Tears are not female. Tears are not male. Tears don't know gender. They don't know male and female genitalia. Let me say this controversially, but if you listen to me, it'll make sense. I somewhat understand what people who are in the LGBTQ community are talking about. Somewhat. I don't agree with the lifestyle of many, but I understand where some of them have interpreted the things that happened to them as children and believe that that is a part of their justification for identifying themselves as having a gender that is not relative to their bodies. Was that a nice way to say that? I'll walk through that carefully, that minefield. What I mean is, for the little girl who didn't always cry as an expression of any one of those emotions, maybe she did not express sadness with tears or whatever. Maybe her reaction, her expression, this is why I said emotion versus expression, seemed to be, now I'm going to get in trouble, but I want to tonight. I want to get in trouble. I want to get in trouble tonight. I should have said it in the beginning. I want to get in trouble to the point where you share this out on your page, that you get bold enough to recognize not only you may be dealing with this, but you may have people based on watching their posts who are going through this. Because we're going to get to numbness before we get done. We have to. But I can somewhat understand the plight of some of those who felt like their expression, in particular, let's be honest, of their emotion, in particular for young girls, in particular, boys as well, but in particular young girls, because if she seemed hard, if she didn't cry when made fun of, or she hurt herself, if she didn't go into tears, she very well may have gotten treated as in a way that boys are supposedly treated. And as I just said, boys don't cry. And if she hears that kind of phraseology, let me say it the way I want to say it, that kind of nonsense that boys shouldn't hear either, because again, tears are indiscriminate. Tears are an expression of the biochemical changes that's caused by stimulus. Sorry for the technical words, but I'm doing that on purpose. Emotions are not germane to men and women. I dare somebody go find me some research that says boys experience some different kind of anger. Send it to me in my DMs. Message it to me. If you got my cell number, text me. Text me the article. And it better be peer reviewed in the psychological journals. Don't send me something by some opinion piece. No, send me something that says anger for boys in terms of the biochemistry. Remember, all the way back to the first week, the brain changes is different for boys than for girls. Show me the peer-reviewed psychological medical articles where anger for a girl is different than anger for a boy. That happiness for a girl is different than happiness for a boy. You know where that gets developed? Nature, nurture? It's not in the nature, it's in the nurture. It's not in the nature. I've seen little boys cry. I was a little boy who cried. I've seen little girls cry. I've seen little girls not cry when they fall off their bikes. When they get pushed and they hit the ground, they jump back up and they go running. I've seen little boys when their moms come and get them and they break down. I've seen other little boys look at him like, what's wrong with you? What is that he's doing? There's water coming from, I've heard it. There's water coming from his face. Mommy, what's wrong with him? Tears were foreign to that child, boy or girl. Literally like, what is that? Oh, those are tears. Oh, something wrong? Yeah, they hurt themselves. Oh, okay. And right there is a moment where that boy, maybe a grown man, for you single ladies, one that you're sitting across from, that you want to date, that you're talking to on the phone, that you're getting text messages from. Catch me now. I want you to get what I'm saying. This is what these videos are about, to get us thinking. I want you to imagine now a 60-year-old man sitting across from one of you single ladies in and around that age. It doesn't have to be, but in and around that age group. Good looking fella. Got him a good job. You know, all the prerequisites, the core requisites. He got him a good job. And yet, he was taught what I'm talking about. He was taught that boys/men don't express certain emotions that you know now as a woman who has come of age need to be expressed. You don't want to be in a relationship with another man who can't express himself appropriately. Uh-oh, Gabe, you used the appropriate word. What are you doing? There's no such thing as an appropriate emotional expression. Is there? Well, I started with tears. How about other expressions? How about the look of gloom or sadness? In my experience, I've even seen negative reactions to men in particular who express sadness. They don't cry, they just sigh. Again, I understand to some extent the LGBTQ community to some extent. Stay with me, don't get upset. And in particular, the individuals. I understand to some extent why those young men, some are not so young now, those young women, not so young, some not so young now. And I think that's how serious this issue is. I think that because we were raised to respond to ourselves and to each other. Here's one. Never let them see you cry. Anybody ever heard that? Men, women, anybody? Oh, no, I know the never let them see you sweat, but that ain't the one I'm talking about. I've heard never let them see you cry. And so that 60-year-old man, that 55-year-old man, that 50-year-old man, that 45-year-old man, that 35-year-old man, that now he's 18, 19, 20, he's going to marry your daughter and your granddaughter, and he's already been ruined. Maybe for the rest of his life, unless he hears something like this, or these broadcasts we've been doing. Something to help him to understand that his emotional expression is extremely important. How important is it, Gabe? Just lay it down to us, man. Help us to understand. Let me tell you how important it is. Because his or her emotional expression reflects what's going on the inside. Remember, emotions are internal. The expression gives rise to what the emotion is. Now, for those of you who've ever watched Tyler Perry movies, believe it or not, this is a constant implicit theme in his characters. Constant. Anybody ever seen Family Reunion? Anybody ever seen Diary of a Mad Black Woman? And on, how about A Family That Prays, Prey? The main character, the Caucasian older woman who was faithful to her cheating husband, and then her son also. And she told his wife Hey, suck it up, deal with it. And she faced, I believe, cancer. His character, as a matter of fact, most melodramas, this happens. The soap operas my mother used to watch when I was a kid, this was constant. This was constant, and then we would hear the narrator, the person narrating their emotions, though their face was just kind of whatever the expression was, but then we would hear that narration. I actually love those movies. I love those. My son and I just got through watching one where the main character was narrating the movie, which includes their emotional expression. I love those because that's supposedly the explanation, what's going on in their mind. Remember, emotions are seated in our minds, in our brains. There are biochemical reactions to the stimuluses in and around us. So then the expression may not always match the emotion. How is that possible, Gabe? I'm glad you asked. Simple. If a person is raised or nurtured in an environment where they are told that a natural emotional expression is unnatural, woo-wee. And not just boys, hear what I'm saying, girls as well. If you have a man or a woman in your family that you are close enough to ask them some questions, ask them. If you're close enough, if you're not, don't do it. But if you got a family member that's come out of the closet and you're close enough, you have a close enough relationship, maybe it's just a good friend, a coworker, and you guys talk real close. Ask them about how they were responded to when they were children, teens in particular, but children, in terms of their emotional expressions. Ask them and see if they tell you. You might just find, and I'm sure there's exceptions to every rule, but you might just find that some of them, maybe many of them, were conditioned to not express what they were feeling naturally, and then to have the natural expression matured. In other words, what's the best way to express anger? What's the most efficient way? I know that's a crazy word to say, but what's the most efficient way? What's the most apropos way to express sadness? Well, I tend to think a fallen countenance, a sad face, is probably natural. The sad face, naturally, what's wrong with you? Nothing. What's wrong with you? Why has your countenance fallen? You get what the word means now? Why has your facial expression sad? Because my pet Coco died. Oh, natural response. A natural, that's what that is. That empathy, I believe. That's a natural response. That's a proper, natural, proper response. But that's not what you want to hear about, right? You want to hear about the unnatural responses. You want to hear about the little boy who throws temper tantrums and is just simply told, shut up, get up, go sit down. Instead of having someone say, come here, let's develop that. Let's understand that. You don't have to go to the point of throwing yourself on the ground. How about this? Articulate or speak to me about why you are temper angry. Speak to me. Here's where we are all creatures. We're all animals. We are of the human kind, obviously. But here's where we are. I don't care if you are a pet lover to the nth degree and how smart your cat is. This is where we are above cats and dogs and pigs and whatever, because we can choose. Hear what I'm saying. This is some powerful stuff. We can choose the expression. I don't think we can always choose the emotion, and we've talked about this before, and we try to repress the emotion. We try to press it down. I don't want to cry. Well, that's not stopping the reasons for the crying. That's not stopping the emotion. That's just trying to stop the expression. So I want to spend the last of my time dealing with the expression, and once again say, as I said a few weeks ago, by all means, feel what you feel. Men, women, young, old, please, ma'am, please, sir, feel what you feel, because guess what? You're going to actually feel it anyway. Whether you believe in God or not, you got here somehow. And if you go all the way back to the first person, eventually you got to say that person was created. They can't get here any other way. So the reality of it is, it's called an infinite regress, if you're wondering what I'm talking about. So the reality of it is, from the first human beings until now, we all have emotion. We get it from our parents get it from their parents, etc. The issue is not the emotion. The issue is the expression. Is there a way to be angry and express that anger without being inappropriate? Well, let's give some kind of general idea of inappropriate. First of all, any kind of harm to oneself. Harming oneself is inappropriate. It's inappropriate. There's not too many places on the planet that I can imagine that is a civilized nation that looks favorably upon hurting yourself. So let's just agree that hurting yourself because of any particular emotion is not appropriate. Okay, let's just go one step further, and I think it's pretty safe to say hurting someone else, physically harming them, verbalizing a hurtful statement because of emotions is inappropriate. So harming yourself and harming each other, that's just inappropriate. I'll use the other word. It's wrong. And again, most civilized nations agree with it. Now, there'd have to be extenuating circumstances. Gabe, well, what about? Okay, I know we got the what about people somewhere out there. So here's the thing. If hurting myself and others behind some emotion is wrong, then Gabe, how do I express emotions that well up so strong in me? I'm glad you asked. And maybe you're asking for the first time in your entire life. Maybe you've never had someone take a minute and just flat out say, there are things that we can learn to do to express our anger. We can express anger. We can do that. We can. And we don't have to hurt ourselves, and we don't have to hurt others in expressing anger. One of the things, let me just help you out here. If you do this, you're hurting yourself. And we've already said, we agree, right? You agree with me. Hurting yourself is inappropriate. Repression of anger is self-hurt, and it's inappropriate. Let me say it again for the people in the back row. Repressing your anger, repressing your frustration, repressing feelings of hurt, repressing feelings of pain is by definition self-abuse. Look it up. Because you are hurting yourself here. You are trying to get your emotions to do what they are not programmed by God to do. I am not going to cry. 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 And now you're angry at yourself. See? Self-abuse. Now you're angry with you because your body is trying to do something natural like shed tears. I knew Grandpa was going to die anyway. I gotta be strong. Why do you think crying is an act of lack of strength? Again, fellas, you listening? You catching me on this, fellas? Tears does not indicate strength or weakness. Tears are indiscriminate. Here's another one that's indiscriminate. A raised voice. Gabe, when you yell, that means you are automatically angry. Anybody ever been to an athletic competition? Anybody been to a sporting event? Anybody watch a movie that really moved them and girl, get him, girl, woo! Anybody had somebody scare them and you raise your voice? Let me use another example that is separate from our being. Anybody ever honk your car horn? Car horns are meant to be loud. They are an alert. They are a horn meant to alert people. Now, most of us have never been actually taught when to use it. But is a car horn a necessary part of a car? Yes. If it were not, they would not have ever put the car horn in the car. Woo! Gabe, I don't like to use my horn. Why? Because I feel it's rude. You know where I'm going. Gabe, I don't like when people yell because I think yelling by itself is rude. I think yelling in and of itself is rude. I feel bad for you. I feel bad for you. Some people yell as an expression of joy. Oh, it don't take all of that. Oh, why you gotta do all of that? I don't feel bad for the yeller. I feel bad for the person. My ears are so ultra sensitive. Oh, please don't yell. And I know that there are people who have conditions like that. I'm not making fun of them. I'm making fun of those people who were raised in environments where any kind of exuberance, yelling, raising your fists. You ain't got to raise your fists. You ain't got to wave your hands. I'm a hand mover. I'm a yeller. I'm a crier from time to time. I don't do it all the time. I did when I was a kid. Can you imagine how difficult my upbringing had to be from a standpoint of emotional expression? Because I move my hands, and the more intense I speak, the more I move my hands. Hey, sit on your hands. Do you understand what I'm saying? People were telling me that my expression of the intensity, which is an emotion, by the way, of the intensity and of the hurt or of the happiness or of the sadness or of the joy or of the frustration or of the anger, I was one of those people being told, you can't do that. I was being told that you are inappropriate. That in our community, we only favor the quiet ones. We only favor the ones who express every single emotion like this. Don't you wonder how I can do that? How I'm able to do that? To be emotionalist in my face? I practiced it. Gabe, are you serious? Yes. I practiced being emotionalist in my face. Because I grew up in and around a community of people that did not want my expression. And guess what? I married individuals like that. First two marriages. Wonder they didn't last, huh? Now, now look, your emotion is a part of you, not your money. No disrespect, fellas. I know you all about your cash, even some of you ladies these days. But your emotions is a part of you, and most of us worry more about our money and our cars and our wardrobes and our jobs than we do about our emotions. We give more attention to learning how to get that fat new pretty hot tempting, not FAT. To worry about getting that new whip, that new ride, worrying about getting that new watch, worrying about getting that new this. We spend more time trying to worry about the things that are external of us than something so dear to us and near to us as our emotions. I'm trying not to go deep with this, but I've gone through marriage and divorce, as I suspect some of the people watching this live and watching this back have as well. It's one of the most destructive things that anyone can go through, whether you caused it or not. Divorce to a marriage is death. It's death. And when you go through those kind of things, you have a range of emotions. Now imagine growing up in an environment where you were quailed in your emotional expression, and you are going through the tumult that leads to a divorce. Here's another one: raising children. Oh man, I told you I want to get in trouble. I told you. Raising children is one of the most challenging things you will do in your human existence. But most people applaud a degree more than they do raising their children. Most people applaud holding down 4 jobs while they raise their children more than raising their children. Or they'll say, I did it by myself. But in fact, it was the daycare, it was the babysitters, it was me, ma, grandma, grandmom, and all the names that people don't want to call themselves. They want to call themselves other than grandma. It was aunties and uncles. It was everybody else who actually raised your kids because you were working 3 jobs. You ain't working 3 jobs and they're with your children unless your kids go to work with you. Sorry. Don't lie to me. Ain't nobody stupid. You ain't working 3 or 4 jobs to make ends meet and raising your kids. Oh, they're in your house. You giving them meals. And what do your children end up, watch this, seeing of you emotionally? Well, they don't get to see you emotionally. Because if you're working 3 jobs, you're numb. Ah, there it is. I told you I was coming to it. You're numb. You're exhausted. It's hard to respond. It's hard to be emotionally involved with your children. Your children need to learn more than just get your good grades and get you a good job and get you a good husband and a good wife and have some great kids. Get me some grandkids. They need to learn more than just show up to church. Did you say that out loud? Yes, I did. They need to learn more than just joy and happiness in terms of, or should I say happiness in terms of drinking and partying and when I get 18 and tattoos and piercings and I'm a living up and act a fool and act wild. They need to learn more than just watching you just try to get through life. They need to see how you handle life emotionally. They need to see your emotional makeup in terms of your expression. Here's the problem. Most of us, as grown people with children, I got an 11-year-old over in his room, 10 feet away from me. Most of us, in terms of our emotional expression, we are unchecked. We are untrained. Most of us, in terms of, did you say trained? Well, when you raise children, what are you doing? You're training them. You're disciplining. I don't mean whooping. I mean you're trying to craft them into human beings who can be grown and have a grown man and woman conversation with you. And when I get done with my son, he will be mature. And mature ain't got nothing to do with paper. Mature ain't got nothing to do with college degrees. Mature ain't got nothing to do with how many friends he has. I promise you that when my son comes of age, he will be able to sit down with his father and have a conversation with me with an emotional range because his father broke through people telling him, sit on your hands. His father broke through people telling him, you ain't got to talk that loud. I talk as loud as I want to talk. His father broke through people telling him, you don't express emotion that way. You know, boys don't cry. Yes, I do. And I did, and I will. I will cry. I tell my son all the time, cry, son. Just understand why you're doing it. What's stimulating the tears here? Now, if you're guilty of something and you've been caught, tears are not appropriate. Gabe, you tell him that? Yes. And how many of you have been told? How many of you have been taught? How many of you have been taught how to experience the emotion that are welling up on the inside of you? Now, I love my parents, but they didn't teach me how to express emotion. Thanks to education, psychology, and a lot of years of doing this, I learned the hard way that there are ways that we can express even the most intense personalities like mine, that there is a place for our expression. And if we're not careful, we will drive away our husbands, our wives. Oh, wait a minute, Gabe. Don't you blame me. I didn't say your name, but let's just get down to it. It may be that you didn't go out and cheat. It may be that you wasn't an infidel in your marriage, but you were emotionally detached and you wanted your husband and your wife to respond to your How are you doing today, honey? Fine. Is anything wrong? No. Do you know that would drive me nuts? That would drive me literally insane. But I know how to do it too. You never home. You never want to talk about what? You're emotionally detached or numb. Oh, I know you have emotion. Y'all didn't think I was going to go here with this? Really? Have you ever been in a friendship or a family relationship with people who literally are trying to elicit some kind of emotional expression? Have you ever engaged people who just know that that's not your personality? Stop lying. That's not a personality trait. That's just my personality. There was a movie that came out many, many years ago. Yeah, I watched it. Get mad if you want to. Called Anger Management. Adam Sandler. And the incomparable Jack Nicholson. He was a kooky psychologist. And everybody knew, Adam Sandler's character, his wife was running over him and a lot of things were going wrong. And so he went to the psychologist and said, no, I don't know what's wrong. People say that, well, you're angry. No, I'm not angry. I'm fine. Goofy movie, not necessarily one that I would recommend, but to make my point, it would definitely make my point. He had turned off his expression, not his emotion, which is what Jack Nicholson's character kept trying to push his buttons. Listen to me. You can't turn off the God-given thing called emotions. You can't turn them off. You can dial down your expression, unfortunately, which we call repression, which can lead to depression. Sound familiar? Sound familiar? There are people very, very, very near and dear to me. I'm not going to say their names, whom I love dearly. I can tell they are one experience away from depression. I can tell. Literally. You know why? Because they've gotten too good at What's wrong with you? Nothing. As a matter of fact, if they ever express any emotion, no matter what it is, they get mad at themselves. Didn't I say hurting ourselves? That we don't do that? That's inappropriate. They pound themselves. I mean, I see people. I'm not supposed to get mad. 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 And then, and they go through all that drama not to get mad. They work. They literally work at not expressing emotion. Yeah, but Gabe, there are some people who are calm. There are some people, they're just non-expressive. You don't realize when you say that, all you're doing is just regurgitating the explanations that somebody gave you. That's what you heard somebody say. Some people are just very calm. Some people, they're just non-expressive. You know what was interesting? A few weeks ago, as of yesterday, we had Capitol riots, right? A few Wednesdays ago, January 6th. Wow. It's already 30 days ago. Almost 30 days. 20-something days ago, excuse me. 21 days, 22 days ago. And what's interesting to me is because all the videos are surfacing that people posted on their social media accounts. And some of the people were at a protest. Now, let me just back up for a second. Some of these people were at a protest because they feel like the country was going to the dogs. They feel like they were losing their country because they were about to lose their president. Okay, that's what they said. I'm not here to discuss politics. Here's the thing that was a trip. Many of those people were smiling. They were at a protest and they were taking selfies. And then the ones who were there to do more than protest, but to riot, go and look at they're all over YouTube. Go look at the videos, TikTok, whatever. These people, some of them were cheering, yeah, at a riot. Want to talk about emotional expressions that might be classified as inappropriate? I want you to think about what I'm saying. Don't get into the politics behind what happened. Think about what you saw on those videos. I'm not talking about the people who got maced. Of course, they were responding to the mace. Or the people who, no. Think about the adulation behind a police officer being killed, a lady being shot. Think about the fact that even though there were people being beaten with the American flag, the pole that held up the American flag, even though there was violence and violent pushing that was happening, as some were trying to push literally into the Capitol, chasing, and a man has his taser, his gun out, drawn. Even though this is what's happening, people are walking around in vests and got those handcuffs, those stylized handcuffs. Even though this is happening, you literally see people posing for selfies, smiling. Now they're using a word called radicalized, but I want to get to the emotional expression of it. Because the reality of being radicalized means that your emotions are the emotion of anger when you're radicalized looks like joy when you're acting out of your radicalization. Woo-wee! I can't even say that 5 times, but that's nice. What happens is when a person falls. So when does this happen? So let's go back to when a person is a child and somebody falls. And the inappropriate response, they fail. They hurt themselves. Oh, you ain't hurt yourself. Get up. You ain't hurt. They laugh at somebody. They yearn. They laugh. You want to know how you know? Because grown people post video after video on places like Facebook of people hurting themselves. There's whole shows dedicated to not just a harmless prank. No, literally watching people hurt themselves, eat something that's deadly or do all kind of things. And it gets millions and millions of views. Again, I won't say any name, but I have several people on my Facebook page who love posting these videos. And it's not them doing something goofy, quote goofy. No. They laugh at the embarrassment and the hurt and the pain of others. They laugh. And you think that that expression of emotion is, listen to what I'm saying, different. The inappropriate expression of emotion is a difference between the inappropriate expressions of emotion in any other situation. I'm not talking about the acts of violence I'm not talking about that, but I'm talking about the emotional expression. That's why I said emotion versus expression. They really should flow naturally. But as people grow up and they are not taught that they can have any real control over their expression, therefore, then they take on the expression that they see. They take on the expression. Why do you think 45 is facing some trouble? And yes, whether you believe he should be impeached or not, I don't care. What I do care about is, that's why when you say, let's go wild, that's why when you say, stand back and stand ready, to people who have been raised to not have a proper emotional expression, that's why you get violence in neighborhoods. That's why you have to have police officers. Because there are young men in my neighborhood who have been raised to see violence as an act of being strong and macho, that the expression that drives them emotionally of hurting someone else is a proper thing, is a good, get them before you get got. Oh, I can go anywhere. I can go anywhere, any culture. I've been in all of them. I grew up around multiple cultures. I've seen things that I'm not going to get into. Gabe, you went deeper than we thought you were going to go, of course. So why is it that a wife nags her husband? No. I didn't say presents to him the issue that she is unhappy with. That's different than nagging. Let's make a difference here. Because at some point or another, she was taught that that is a proper expression of her frustration and her anger. She may have been nagged as a kid. She may have began to develop those habits before she met that man. That man didn't raise her. Why is it that men do what they do? I mean, at some point or another, we've got to understand that there has got to be some kind of recognition that yes, we have emotion, but then we also have to deal with how are we expressing it? How are we expressing it? How are we releasing the anger or the joy? Why are we joyous when somebody is hurting and somebody is dying? And when somebody is, oh, they're just faking. And then we find out that, no, they actually died. Why do we laugh at people's calamity? Why do we express joy when we should be scared and we should be trying to help, or we should at least start praying, or something we should do? What's going on in our minds? Here it is. I only got a little bit of time left, a disconnect. And I want to reconnect some of us if I can. I can't do anything for the people who went to the Capitol. I can't do anything for them unless you're watching. I can't do anything for them. Share. Maybe you'll hit one of them. 6 degrees of separation. Share on your page. Maybe it'll hit one of them. But there is no, yes, Black Lives Matter. But okay, what about them? Okay. Go watch the videos of many of those protests. Now, unless somebody just indiscriminately caught somebody on camera, or they were joining together in unity, then you may have saw smiles. But when you saw them marching and protesting, there weren't a whole lot of smiles. Now, of course, Gabe, what about the people with masks? Well, you can't do anything with that. But read the eyes. There was a look of seriousness. Listen to the speeches. There was seriousness. I'll critique them, fine. From an emotional expression, I didn't see a lot of joy and jovial laughs on Colin Kaepernick's face. He seemed rather serious about what he was kneeling for, whether we agree with him or not. Not here to discuss that. That was years ago. But he seemed like a person who was kneeling over something he felt was serious, so he had a serious look. And yet, in society, there were those who dismissed him and suggested that he was being disrespectful, and yet they didn't acknowledge the seriousness of his presentation. That's my point. That's the whole point of this broadcast tonight, is to help us to understand when I see a person looking serious, I take them seriously. So if you start saying, oh, Gabe, I just always look like that, well, then you're going to always be perceived. Why do people think I'm always serious? Because you have an expression of seriousness that suggests that you are experiencing serious types of emotion. Oh, I need to smile more. You think? And I'm not a smiler by nature. In terms of the cheerleader, I talked about that last week. I don't necessarily walk around. I don't do that. And yet there are times when I laugh, when I smile, because I see something, a cute little child, and they go in the store. I don't go. I got an 11-year-old. I posted pictures of him as a toddler. Why? Because they bring joy to me when I see little ones. I smile. That's a natural, I feel the well of joy and also feel for their parents. But anyway, I feel the well of joy over seeing a little cute little face, and I just pray that they are protected because all the evil that's out there, and I won't get into all that because I'm not trying to make you sad. I'm just trying to make you think. If I see somebody, I tend not to want to disturb them unless I have to. Why? I assume they are in deep thought. Now, if I say, excuse me, sir, I don't mean to bother you. Oh, no, I'm not doing anything. Well, you certainly are expressing that you're doing something. Do you understand? In your community, let me just land this plane. When we interact with each other, married, single, got children, grandchildren, your coworkers, I encourage you, and I said this before, I encourage you to be cognizant of your emotional expression. Your basic personality may be just kind of, you don't smile, you don't frown, you don't anything. Okay, I get you. But at some point or another, the complexity of your emotional self, don't you want that to be respected? How will I respect it if you don't express it? I'm asking. I'm not asking for a friend. I'm asking for me. How can I understand what you're feeling, what you're dealing with on the inside of your being, if your expression, you're intentionally choosing to express something that is not respective to what you're feeling? Now, understand, if you don't know me and I'm a stranger, you may not want me to know that you were a little disturbed by something you just saw a video. And so you may smile to me because I'm a stranger. I understand that. I get that. But I'm talking about your community. I'm a stranger, but your community. The people who know you. If the people who know you don't know the complexity of your emotions, you know whose fault that is? Look in the mirror. Look in the mirror. The one thing that I desperately want my son to know about me is not my smarts. Is not simply that I am a Christian or a thing. That's kind of obvious at this point, since his dad is a full-time pastor, right? What I want him to know is about me is what's in him. That he has sadness, he has happiness. He has a complexity. He has a range of emotions. And that he has my permission as his father to express those emotions around me and hopefully around others whom he's close to. I can't speak for them, but I hope that he comes to a point to realize as he gets older that he has the God-given right to express, and that if people don't want his expression, he should not repress. Guess what he should do? Leave him alone. He should leave him alone. He should leave him alone. He should just consider, you know what? That person doesn't like that I smile when I'm happy. I don't have to get on Facebook. I don't have to get on social media and do a video about it. I don't have to get on there and say to all of the people who don't like when I smile, God made me. You can't judge me. And look, stop that nonsense. No disrespect, but please stop that. And these are 40, 50, 60-year-old people talking about, and I don't care if you don't like, well, you're talking about it, so you do. You do care. You cared enough to go find a whole meme. And I mean, what you do, type in, I don't care memes. You're sitting there talking about you don't care, but you got 32 memes about you don't care on your page. I'm venturing to say you're trying to repress an emotion that suggests that you don't care, but that you do. Look, if you don't care, if I don't care about something, I don't give any energy to it. That's what I was taught. I don't give energy to people calling me names anymore. It's been a long time since I stopped. You have to be somebody that I care about. I don't care about the names, but I care about. So if somebody calls me something that I feel is disrespectful, I decide if that person is significant enough to me. That may sound mean to you, but hey, you do what you do. I decide, okay, is that person meaningful enough to me for me to say something? If the person is not meaningful enough to me and I could probably just stay completely away from them, guess what I do? I stay away from them. I stay away from them. I do. What was disturbing to me, and I'm done, about the protests was this. And it was disturbing, and stay with me for a second. When they interviewed people who were there for the protest itself, and things start getting out of hand. Now, some were way back, and I understand that they weren't really aware of what was going on. But as they were being, you could tell, and as some were being interviewed and they were being made aware that they stormed the Capitol. You know what was interesting to me? Now listen to me carefully. That their emotional expression wasn't like, they did what? Yeah, man, they're up there storming the Capitol. They're in there doing all of this stuff, man. Hey, just for the record, I'm not here for that. I came here for a peaceful protest. I don't think I may have saw one or two people do this. And I watched many of them. Many of these interviews, not just of the rioters, but of the people who were protesting. Yes, we came out here because we really feel like the election was stolen. And then when they began to get the news that things were getting out of hand, and oh, what's going on? Yeah, man, people are up there breaking into the Capitol. What was a trip was they were like, oh my goodness, we're not here for that. Somebody go stop them. So, hey, tell them, hey, I'm going home. I'm not here for that. That is inappropriate. That's our building. Think about that phrase. That's our building. They're storming the building? No, we're not here to destroy our building. We're not here to vandalize our own building. Now, I'm saying this for a reason. Because when they talked about other protests done by brown and black people, they talked about them destroying their own neighborhoods. Well, come to find out that the ones who were destroying the neighborhoods, I watched the videos. Hey, I'm a free video, watcher. Well, in the Black Lives Matter protest, for example, that was last year, much of last year, it wasn't brown and black people who were being filmed as breaking in to people's businesses and tearing up people's property. And here was the reaction. Here was the emotional expression. Listen to me. Here was the emotional expression of those who were there for the protest. Hey, they took out their phones and were literally filming these people who didn't look like me. And they were saying, we are not here for this. This is not what we are about. And we believe this is wrong. I want you to understand how serious this is. I want you to understand how serious this is. Our emotional expressions say something about our character. I'm going to let that sink in. I'm going to end this entire series on this. I saved this for last. You can say whatever you want, Gabe. Now you're going too far. But I think we've seen enough in the last year. And our American history teaches us. Right? You don't need me to go back to that, 1964. Right? Our emotional expressions and the things we choose to do on the basis of our emotion. I just can't help it. You want me to be more personal, more personal to individuals? Okay. Husbands, I'm sorry, baby. I'm just angry. Boyfriends, I'm just angry. Yeah, but you punched me in my face. Yeah, but you pushed me into a wall. Yeah, but I'm just angry. I'm just angry. Our emotional expressions, the choices we make. I know this is a little heavy to end with. I know, but I got to do it. What we choose to do in expression of our emotions is not just a reflection of the emotion we are supposedly expressing. It is a reflection of our character. It speaks to how we were raised. I've already said it. It speaks to how we were nurtured. It speaks to what we saw. And it speaks to it. And I know that makes you uncomfortable because, Gabe, that means if I expressed a lot of anger with yelling and screaming and throwing things and cussing my children out, and I see one of my children, if not more of my children, doing that, I've got to own that. Yes, you got to own part of it. Yes. Because that's not a proper expression. There are better ways to express. I hear parents, and I'm not, and right in my own neighborhood, cussing their children out. I've heard it all my life, even when I was a kid. What are the beep you doing? And they can't figure out why the children grow up and cuss at their grandkids. Don't cuss at my grandbaby. Well, they heard you cussing at your grandbaby, so at them. You think it's strange that they're, yeah, I know I cussed at you, but don't you cuss at my grandbaby. Don't you cuss at my grandson. Don't you cuss at my granddaughter. There's a gentleman named Damon Richardson. He has a phrase, who taught you? I want you to be convinced, and I'm over my time, but I want you to be convinced that your emotional expression and mine are reflective, not of I can't help it, but in fact, I'm choosing it. And I may have been choosing to express myself like this for so long, I actually think I was born this way. When indeed and in fact, you were not. Tears are indiscriminate. They don't reflect weakness or strength. Just like yelling doesn't reflect weakness or strength. It can be used to reflect weakness. It also can be used to reflect strength. Have you ever seen the movie 300? Thought I'd mention it. So the reality of it is, brothers and sisters, my dear Facebook friends, family and friends, why do we say family? I don't know. My dear Facebook friends, I hope you get the point. Share this out. Get this to it in front of as many people as you can. Tag them. Get them watching these videos. I'm posting these on my YouTube channel. If you want to know my link to the YouTube channel, DM me. I'll get that link to you. I hope this whole series, 3 or 4 lessons, has been beneficial. This is heavy stuff. You may disagree. I understand that. You know, give me your pointers. Let's talk about it. Let's continue the conversation. I'll come back. If you give me some good things to look at, I'll come back. And I'll do a whole nother broadcast if you can convince me otherwise. But I get the sneaky suspicion that not only do our expression give rise to the emotions in our makeup, but it gives rise to our character. It's a powerful thing to have dogs sicked on you. Or how about recently, that's 1964, how about recently, to have rubber bullets shot into a crowd by the people who sworn to protect you, while you peacefully protest, which is of course allowed in the Constitution of the United States. What is it? To control your emotions, as those rubber bullets, which by the way I understand are extraordinarily painful. Talking to a police officer, retired police officer, and if they hit you the wrong way, could actually be deadly. To have rubber bullets shot into the crowd, where children as well as men and women are peacefully protesting for a photo op. To see the man who is your president using the military in such a way, that's got to hurt on a lot of levels. And yet to maintain a decorum, and keep in mind that at the heart of the Black Lives Matter protest was police brutality. It takes great character. Do you get my point? It takes great character to be able to reserve yourself, not repress, because I understand those same people expressed their dissatisfaction, so they didn't repress. They filtered it up they filtered it the best and most plausible and wisest way. They weren't there to get killed. They were there to protest in light of the injustices they believed that they were experiencing and that people of color, black and brown people, are experiencing. It takes something to be called a name, to be spit on, to be shot at, and to maintain yourself and still express yourself emotionally. To come out of a household where your mother talks down to you, where your dad belittles you and berates you, and still have the range of emotional complexity is a very serious thing. Kids who go through divorce often struggle. I'm trying not to go to the psychological stuff too much, but kids who go through divorce psychologically tend to have certain emotions that they won't express. And I won't get into all that because that's another hour. But there are certain emotions. So if you've been through a divorce, look at your grown kids, particularly depending on the age you were at when you and your husband parted. Look at your grandkids if your children have gone through a divorce or were never married and are now parted from each other in terms of dating or whatever the case was. Watch your grandkids. Keep an eye on it. In particular, their emotional expression. You okay, grandson? Oh, I'm good. Excuse me. What does that mean, grandson? I'm good. This has hit my own household. I'm not going to obviously get into that, but this hit my own household. It woke me up over a year ago. Woke me up. And I pay attention now. I focus in very closely to what's going on. I am tuned in to what's happening emotionally in my community. I'll say it that way. And I hope you do the same. I hope these videos drive you to do the same. All right. I hope these are a benefit to you. Please share them out. Get them in front of as many people as you can. Tag them onto these videos if at all possible. Have a great night.